I think my generation did something really interesting. Many of us walked away from church. We questioned the theology, we questioned the institutions, we questioned whether fear and guilt were really the best ways to help us find God. But I think in walking away from the church, many of us have come to miss or regret certain aspects later in life. And I think this is why so many younger generations are actually going back to church in droves. And this is really important, especially with children, because I think for the first time in generations, many millions of kids have grown up without any kind of spiritual welcoming ceremony. No baptism, no community blessing ritual, no chance for the community to pray and say, hey, we're here for you. We love you. We'll guide you through this. I mean, the birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese just doesn't hit the same way. But I was raised Catholic, and honestly, baptism never really made much sense to me because Jesus wasn't baptized as a baby. He chose to be baptized as an adult. It was a conscious decision, a really beautiful one because it marked the beginning of his ministry. But where did we shift that into baptizing infants? It just didn't make sense to me. There was no biblical reason for it. Now, later, the church would say, oh, it's because of original sin and newborns have to be baptized in order to cleanse them of original sin. But as a parent, that doesn't make sense to me either, because when I look at my child's eyes, I see pure innocence and wonder, and I see a baby infant that is as close to God as any of us could ever possibly be. So the idea of baptizing a child to cleanse them of the sin is it doesn't make sense to me. They have no sin. But then I became a father, and I realized even though I didn't agree with the premise of baptism that I was taught, I still wanted to have a ritual to help my children begin their spiritual journey, to bring the community together, to recognize them, to pray over them, to formally honor their godparents who, if something ever happened to me, would take up the helm and raise our children for us. And so I began studying the history, and I realized that the idea of baptizing isn't Christian. It's completely Christian. It was actually the Romans before the Christians who had a day of purification for newborn infants at around the eighth or ninth day, where they would welcome newborns into the family. And it was at this day of purification where the newborn would get their name and they'd formally become a member of society. If an infant died before the day of purification, they would die nameless because they weren't recognized as a citizen. And so all this to say, this past week we baptized our children. And I like to use the word baptism, maybe it was more like a blessing, but I think the word baptism just carries a certain amount of weight because when I tell people, hey, we are having a baptism, it just means so much more. And people recognize it as a significant spiritual activity rather than just saying, oh, we're just having a blessing this weekend. Well, that just seems like any other Sunday. So I use the word baptism, even though I have a different perspective than the Christian tradition that I came from, even though we do incorporate certain elements of that. But it was more of a blessing. And we actually borrowed a tradition from the Shipibo people of Peru who prepare flower baths before ayahuasca. So when I was doing ayahuasca in Peru, every morning we get a flower bath with this beautiful water, with these crushed flower petals. The shaman would pray over us for a little bit, and that would help us prepare for the spiritual event that we were going through later that night. And so with our children, we incorporated a flower bath ritual where we first cleansed or blessed the parents and the godparents, actually. And then after we blessed the godparents and parents, then we blessed the children. And I'll read to you briefly the prayer that we said as we were blessing them. Today we bless you with water, the first gift of creation, the river of life that flows through every living thing. Today we bless you with flowers, symbols of beauty. May your life bloom and fill this world with joy. Today we bless you with the love of your family, your community, and the countless ancestors who have come before you, whose spirits you carry. May our love fill you with strength. And although we gather to bless you, the truth is that you bless us even more. You are beloved, and we give thanks to God for the gift of your life. Amen. And that last line, you are beloved, that's an ode to the book of Matthew, where Jesus is baptized, and they say that God came down and afterwards said, this is my beloved son with whom I am well pleased. And I think that as parents, that's what we say when we see our children. These are our beloved children with whom we are well pleased. And so that is my take on baptism, and I am honored to be able to have blessed our children this past weekend, not as a rite of passage, not as something that they have to get through to cleanse them of their original sin, but just as a chance for us to come together as a community, as a family, and wish them our blessings and love, and show them that we are here to support them on their spiritual journey. And it was absolutely beautiful. It really was.